Today's video, I'm going to build a Brooklyn Bridge table base using these 1867 plans. Starting with a 3/4 inch sheet of Baltic birch plywood, I'm going to make the front, back, and sides of the table base. I gotta say, a sliding table saw really comes in handy when you have to cut up sheet goods. Next is to cut the front and back panels to width. Here I'm cross-cutting to length the front and back panels along with the smaller sides, but I haven't cut the sides to width yet. I'm going to show you a trick for that. Here's the trick to get an exact width. I put the front and back panels together. I need 5 inches, so I put 5 inches on the outside on my tape measure, and I just read the other side. If I cut my piece to this measurement, which is 3 9/16, I'll get the exact 5 inch I need. Now I'm ripping the sides to 3 9/16, and all the parts will be complete for the basic box of the table legs.
Do you feel lucky? Well, do you?
Here's the Grex 18 gauge cordless nailer. This is my favorite cordless 18 gauge nailer by far. I've been using it for several months now, and it's an awesome gun. Here's a little tip for cleaning up glue squeeze out. Back to assembling the 2 main boxes for the base. Two bases are done, and now it's time to draw the curve for the bridge opening using my curve template, or as I like to call it, the centipede. After drawing the curve, I took it to the miter saw and roughed it out. Then onto the disc sander. Now it's time to trace it onto the template that we'll use to route out the bases. Template looks good. Time to cut it out. Using my track saw, I'll cut out the openings in the template. One of the nice features of these track saws is you can plunge cut in the middle of your work. And next, I'll finish the cut using my jigsaw. You see here I'm using this little piece of wood. I'm trying to get as close as possible to the line to minimize cleanup. And this stick is helping move debris so I can clearly see the line. Just a little rubber band practice. You never know when it'll come in handy. This is why I kept as close as possible to the line when I was cutting, because all of this work will be done by hand. Even though my Shinto rasp is awesome, it still takes some time, and the less you have to remove, the better. Time to trace the template and draw in all the reference lines. Not only does it have to look good, it needs to sound good. Pre-drilling at this step really helps with the rough cut with the jigsaw. It just helps you enter and exit the cut a lot easier. You don't have to be too precise on this cut. I try to be about a 1/16 away from the line. That way it doesn't put as much stress on the router bit. Making sure the router template doesn't move is crucial. Now normally I'll do this with glue tape and CA glue. Here I'm using screws because it's much quicker and the holes won't be shown because they'll be covered up by the trim later. When you don't leave a lot of material for the router to take out, it goes quick and smoothly. Checking that both sides are square to each other. Oh yeah, looks like I got lucky there. Well, that's one way to keep yourself entertained in the shop while you're adding leveling feet blocks. Now I'm attaching the bottom, and I'm doing this over the outside rather than being inset so that it holds all the weight and it's not being held by the fasteners. I find it easier and more accurate to oversize your piece and then flush trim it rather than trying to cut it exactly. Next, I need to trace the metal rails onto the two legs. Doesn't everything just look better in slow-mo? Time to rough cut out the rails. Shinto rasp, at it again. This is my favorite rasp. Now it's time to rip the 1/8 inch ply, which will go on the inside of the curves. Now this was a little tricky to get it to stay in place, but nothing 100 staples couldn't fix. Now it's time to cut up the medics for the trim on the bases. This is where it's really going to start to take shape. There's a nice feature on the sliding table saw. You can adjust the fence to use it as a stop. Like I said, you got to keep yourself entertained. Here's where I start building up both bases, using 3/4 down at the bottom because there's stepping all the way from the top of the bridge base down to the bottom. You'll see as I continue on. Here again, I cut the piece long and I'm using my router just to flush it up with the notches I already made. This is just easier and probably more accurate. I guess I started feeling lucky and I was trying all different ways to entertain myself, but I gotta admit, it was pretty fun. Well, if woodworking doesn't work out, maybe I can join Dude Perfect. Now it's time for all the 1/4 inch medics. This is where it really starts to layer up and look good. All the step transitions on the base receive a 30-degree bevel. Three-pointer from 47 feet, nothing but net. Okay, back to work. Time to cut the beveled pieces to their rough length and width. Time to put on the transitions, and I got a surprise coming up. Wait for it! Boom! 23 gauge 2-inch cordless pinner in the wild. Every chance I get to use a handsaw, I take it. It's always fun. I gotta say, this 18 gauge and 23 gauge cordless nailers are really handy to have. It's super nice not having to drag around a hose or switch back and forth. Man, I'm really liking it. You can see I'm marking everything, then cutting it to fit. This seems to be the most accurate and easiest way to do it. On these 30-degree angles, I'm just using the disc sander. Sorry about the shaking. I think the tripod was touching the cart. I was wondering when I was going to hit a nail. Believe me, that wasn't the last one either. But having these nippers and the nail setter was a piece of cake to fix it. On to the final stretch for this face, and it's really starting to take shape. I really like the proportions and the step down feature of this design. Well, here you go, all done, marked out, and ready for the next step. Time to do some manly work and cook some metal. I don't know, I feel like I should get something for accidentally making a DeWalt commercial. What do you think? It's starting to look like something now. Time to take the rails to the water jet to get their pattern cut out and pull out the tile saw. It's funny how easily you can forget how heavy some of these tools are. Man, this was a beast. Water, check. Pump, check. Jig, check. A very underestimated amount of tile to cut, check. I started by cutting each tile into 5 individual pieces, and this took a really long time. Sometimes you find beauty in the most unlikely places. Okay, 2,600 cuts done for the first round. Then all of these pieces get cut into 5 individual pieces. That's totaling the 12,000 and some pieces. Time to make another jig using 1/4 inch Medex. This stuff works excellent because it doesn't swell with the water. And again, using CA glue. I love this stuff for temporary jigs. Works great. And I'm going to use the blue tape and CA trick to attach it to the saw. This works excellent as well. Even with the water, it holds great. Now it's time to cut all the strips we just cut into 5 individual pieces. And at this point, I'm still optimistic I'll be able to get it done. One nice thing about California is if you need something to dry, just set it outside. This was a shot of when I took off the first template I made, and you can see I'm hosing it down. The cuts on this took several days, so this got hosed down numerous times and was run under water for hours, and you can see how well it's still attached to the saw. This is an excellent method to make all types of jigs for your tile saw. I didn't get all 12,000 pieces cut, but I needed to take a break, and I thought putting some tile on would be a little bit more relaxing. Man, this was a lot of work too. Once one face was mostly done, I moved to the side to try to get more full pieces on. That's when I realized how many cut pieces there were going to be. Now this table is going to the AWF show in Vegas, and it's about a day and a half away from the show. I haven't totally realized yet that this isn't going to happen, and I'm going to have to change plans in the middle, but I keep optimistically trying to put tile on. Let's see how it turns out. Hey guys, here's a quick tip. I've got to remove the rust inside this pattern here, and unfortunately the water jet company didn't dry it off and seal it properly, so it rusted. So what I've done is attach some metal sandpaper to a fine blade, and that'll allow me to get tight into the corners and get all that rust out. I gotta say, the multi-tool comes in handy in so many ways, but it really has an annoying sound. I always wear ear protection. Okay, so I got the rails cleaned and painted and the tile done on the base. I realize there's no way I'm gonna get the tile done on the top in time for the show. So I'm putting the rails on. I'm gonna have to paint the top black. Let's see how that turns out. Rails are in, and the other 1/8 inch ply for the arch that covers over the rail is also in. Now it's ready for paint. Now it might look bright in the shop, but it's dark outside because it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, it was one of those projects. It got real crazy at the end, but I think it turned out great. Wait till you see it. So I decided to put the stone caps on the top of the tile for the base, and again, CA glue was my friend. Here you can see the 45 miter sled I made for the tile saw. Now it's on to the bridge decking made of solid oak. Really gave my planer a workout tonight. Running it through the table saw to get a straight edge before I tongue and groove it. Starting with the tongue bit, I ran all the boards through. The nice thing about having a matched bit set is I can pull one bit out, put the next bit in, I don't have to adjust for height, and I'm ready to go. Time to get groovy. With literally no time to spare, I gotta say it was a slam dunk. So here it is in all its glory at the AWF show with the maple epoxy resin river table and the magnetic levitation device. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the like button or that subscribe button. I've got a lot more videos coming, so stay tuned. See you next time.